Welcome to The Week Ahead, a podcast by SBM Intelligence. I'm your host, Veronica Pana-Egube. Every Friday, we explore stories that are shaping our continent. Nigeria's communication minister, Bosun Tijani, says the government will assess MTN's $2.2 billion acquisition of a majority stake in IHS to ensure it aligns with national telecom priorities. What does this review mean for Nigeria's telecom sector? The United States has intensified scrutiny over security and illegal mining, with a bill in the House of Representatives proposing sanctions, visa bans, and asset freezes, while the Treasury freezes assets of 8 Nigerians linked to extremist and cyber activities. What impact could this have on Nigeria's security and foreign relations? Meanwhile, the US secretly deported 9 migrants to Cameroon, despite some having US court protections. The Trump administration flew them from Alexandria on January 14th without Cameroon's public consent. What are the legal and diplomatic consequences? Joining us today for further insights on the podcast is Victor Ejechi. Welcome, Victor, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. Let's start with our first story. So our first story, we see there's an acquisition of IHS by MTN. Can you give us like a background story of what this is about and why the minister's take on this is, interesting, and what review or impact does this have on Nigeria's telecom sector?
Yeah, in that sector. If you look at what Bosun Tijani is saying he wants to do, there's one important thing. His review passed on to me is the fact that the telecom infrastructure is no longer just it's no longer child's play. It's more like a strategic national infrastructure, if I have to use that word. Now, for years, operators like MTN Nigeria, they sold their towers to independent, what we call the asset light. The idea was simple. No, the idea was to focus on customers and also spectrum and let tower companies manage the physical structure. But what is happening now is that MTN wants to bring those towers back under its control. So when the is that he wants to review the thing, it's because towers are just steel poles. They carry a lot of financial transactions, digital identity. You can talk about emergency communication and with the increasingly 5G rollout. So it appears that because of the digital age we are expanding, a lot of people are actually coming into that bracket. There's a need for the federal government to actually have a thorough review of what is actually happening in that transaction. So the core issue here will probably be a competition. So, for example, IHS has operated as a neutral host for the longest of time. The way it works is that multiple operators come together to own those towers. If the largest, for example, if MTN being an operator now control a significant portion of that infrastructure, it is important that the regulator needs to come in to make sure that access remain non-discriminatory, because the way it works that we have the likes of Etisalat, which is not easy. We have the likes of Etel that actually they subscribe to tenancy on this particular tower, for example. So if MTN is buying that tower off and having full control over that, so what would be the fate of other competitors? Will MTN be fair in their in access and all that? So but also coming in will actually give a form of like to make sure that there is what I call a non-discriminatory issues happening in that sector. Also, most importantly, making sure that pricing does not disadvantage to competitors as well. We're obviously looking at also the market dominance. It doesn't because sometimes the consumer will probably want to ask, how does this even affect them? Now, this improve network quality if MTN invests more directly and resolve the out faster. For example, when I was talking to some of the my MTN colleagues, friends earlier today, their issue is that before now, if they have issues with their tower or their network issues, it takes time before IHS will even come and rectify it. But now if MTN has full access to it, there's every possibility that there will be faster rectification of issues. So the review is less about blocking investment, and I think it's more about protecting long-term sector balance. So that's my take on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you that, the ministry is coming in to protect customers, consumers, because I mean, competition is something that we need in the market, and you rightly pointed out how, what would be the possibilities if MTN holds a larger stake when you have other customers like Airtel that subscribe to IHS's towers. But do you think I mean, this is just spitballing here, but like, what do you think would be the decision? I mean, what are your thoughts on, do you think the ministry will stop the acquisition? Um, or do you think it wouldn't? And do you think that this review would kind of like boost some confidence for the citizens as well, like trusting, the government again, especially to say that, the government is trying to protect our rights as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think the ministry will not interfere in terms of stopping this transaction. I think what I just wanted to do is to be sure that every party is involved are being carried along and making sure that the advertisements about with other competitors in the market. Now, someone uh, some of the information I got earlier today from some staff of MTM and all that is that um, IHS will be treated as just a different entity from MTN. Even though MTN is the owner, they will definitely treat it like another business, basically. So they are in that word, they're trying to guarantee the fact that nobody will be disenfranchised and all that. But that is there. Somebody raised up the issue of monopoly and coming into the market and all that. So I think the ministry will go ahead with this. We support this particular kind of investment and transaction. The only important thing that will happen is they will have to maybe get clarification and be sure that nobody is being cheated in the process and other competitors are being carried along and their interests are also being secured in the process.
Yeah, looking forward to how that, will turn out as well. Let's move on to our second story where we're seeing heavy sanctions from the US, kind of visa bans, asset freezing. What is this message that the US is sending to Nigeria? Um, do you think it will have an effect? Do you think that it's going to act as a deterrent to stop more people from, towing this line? Or do you think that the US should have taken their hands off and let Nigeria deal with Nigerians' problem as as a sovereign nation? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so in one way, if you say Nigeria should sort its issues, or the question will be like, for many years, have we been able to solve our issues by ourselves? Because at the end of the day, if the US is coming in to fight for us in courts, they are still fighting for their interests. Everybody has interest, right? But the serious development of the story that you asked and the question, the development moves Nigeria's security issues into what I will refer to as the global financial system. When the US proposes sanction tied to illegal mining and extremist financing, and when we saw that the US Treasury also freezes assets, this is symbolic actually. Sanction operates through the dollar system. So one designated individuals are effectively cut off from global banking network. So that also means if Nigeria is being sanctioned in any because of things like this, there's a problem. There's a problem because when we were designated as a country of particular concern, there was a big issue with that. We talk about the lobbies that went to the US to making sure that we had to, for you see how much is being spent on that. That will tell you how important how we look, perception, how the world perceive us to be, because that's what should have an effect on investment and all that. So there are some implications. First you can talk about the financial pressure that was going to come in. The Nigerian bank and exporter will need what I think stronger compliance system to avoid secondary sanctions. So if, for example, we have been sanctioned, you can imagine how exporters and people that does business with other countries here in Nigeria to other countries, how that is going to affect them. We can also talk about the reputational risk for the mining sector. I've seen investors saying that they want to come into Nigeria into the mining sector to invest. What kind of reputational damage are we doing with stories like this? So Nigeria is trying to. I know Bola Tinubu, the president, has been going to other country to see how much investment can come into Nigeria. So if Nigeria is trying to attract global investment into, of course, the lithium sector and also the gold sector and all that, if lawmakers abroad associate mining with to affect confidence and people confidence into the country. And any investors that want to come into Nigeria to invest, we have to think twice, about issues like this. We can also talk about the diplomacy, what as I said earlier, sanction signals, the US believe enforcement gap exists. That's the problem. For what they are literally saying is that you people are not handling your issue very well. So we are coming in to help you handle the issue. And I think that's just like you said about sovereignty and them being a sovereign nation. That's also a thing, though. But I will end my thought by saying that the long term outcome depends on how Nigeria actually responds to issues like this. Now, if this leads to stronger mining regulation, for example, and then a better counter-terror financing enforcement, it could actually strengthen Nigerian credibility internationally rather. So it largely depends on how Nigeria responds. If the US is pointing to say that this is the issue, we can figure out these are the issues facing here. Nigeria response should be like, oh, do we also see the issue here? Let's find a way to put a measures in place to see that this issue does not escalate. So it's largely dependent on how Nigeria responds to it.
I mean, I do agree with you that this affects our international reputation as well, because, like you rightly pointed out, the president has been making quite a number of trips in order to, build relations with different nations. And, when we already have investors who have, made commitments to come into the country and partner with us, these type of stories, kind of like will put a full stop kind of on those kind of agreements. Hopefully it doesn't. But I mean, like Nigeria needs, like you said, to respond. And it also depends on how we respond. I mean, right from when Nigeria was, tagged a country of particular concern by Donald Trump, we've kind of been seeing diplomacy back and forth from the Nigerian government as well as the US government. Do you feel like, and this is like another pressure again that we're getting, do you think that these kind of external pressures are helping? Have we seen like an improvement in strengthening the domestic efforts, especially against like mining and the security challenges that we're having? Or do you think this is a good pressure for our country in order for, like you said, we've been trying to fix it ourselves and it hasn't worked out? This type of pressure, does it make us sit up and say, you know what, if we don't do this, we would have other nations try to fix our problems, and we don't want that as well?
Yeah. So, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good. So, there are two ways in this. One, as someone that understands that if the US is coming in to help a sovereign nation, the US also have its own agenda. One, but again, if you look at it from the angle of we've been suffering for the longest of time, and somebody has the solution, for example, to sometimes we want to overlook whatever other motive the person has. Let's just solve the problem. But then on the long run, probably will suffer for the implication and the of them coming in. So I will say that there should be a lot of partnership with the US instead of the US coming in to take charge. So if for any reason, for example, if you look at the December um, attack that happened when the US actually threw that their drone down to Nigeria, for example, in the north. At the end of the day, we saw that the Nigerian government said it was a collaboration, it was a partnership with the US. And I think that if we are lacking anything, if there's a problem in actually in our in any sector per se, let me not even generalize it to security. I think it should be more of partnership instead of the US coming in to do it without the Nigerian government being carried along. So I would say for us to respect our sovereignty and for us to be sure that our motive, our interest is being taken care of, it should be more of a partnership with the US. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our final story where the US secretly deported 9 migrants to Cameroon, um, despite some having US court protections. What is going on here? Do you think that we're going to see I mean, do you think that we're going to see a trend? I know like Trump has been trying a lot to crack down on immigration. We've been seeing ICE being really heavy-handed and active, kind of
Yeah.
to address their issue. But I mean, this is a trend now that we're going to see deporting to African nations. Do you think this is right? I mean, what are your thoughts generally on this story?
Of course, it's not. There's some things that will happen. You will think that you understand your politics, then you will just see some things they are doing that you just know this is against all the books. So if migrants had active US court protections and were still being deported, that's really serious due process concern. You know, court order are meant to be binding. So ignoring them can actually trigger constitutional challenges and even judicial scrutiny. So and I think Trump and his people they know these things, right? So, because they are also they are international law. So the principle of I can't remember the principle. There's a principle that actually prohibits returning individual to places where they may face persecution or harm. These people have documents, court document backing them. So doing this is actually going against that diplomacy now. Diplomatically, now if Cameroon did not publicly consent to that, that becomes a sovereignty issue, basically. You know, and third country deportation usually require formal bilateral agreement, of course, as we know it. And I think when I was looking at the story, and I was just thinking like, what is his play? Like, and I know that he probably, I know there was a time, if my memories have been right, where Trump wanted to deport some migrant to is it South Africa and Nigeria or something like that, and that was rejected, and he felt so bad and felt like he wanted to increase tariff and all that. So this is just um, actually breaching diplomatic process. But again, zooming out from this, now this also reflects what just like you said, a global trend. Powerful states are increasingly, they're externalizing migration control. Some of them are relocating migrants to third countries than even returning them directly home. So they're not. So if you want to deport someone that came maybe from Nigeria, you will probably not deport the person to a third country. And then again, you impose to this country sometimes because maybe you have leverage over them. You want to remove their aids or you want to remove some of the support that you give to this country. Now, that's why I so much believe that every country should stand strong for themselves. If not, the US and other Western countries would just take advantage of that. So, and I think this is also a developing story. I really want to hear what the Cameroon guys will have to say for this. Yeah.
I mean, it's also like to hear, like, I mean, officially, there's no deal between the US and Cameroon to, receive, deportees. But I mean, if it was even like citizens of Cameroon, then maybe it will be understandable. But these are
And you get.
these are citizens from other nations. So it's just like I'm in my territory and okay, you go there. Right. I mean, like you said, let's see what Cameroon's response will be as well. Um,
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Victor. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
same here.
To all our listeners, this podcast is by SBM Intelligence. You can access our podcast by searching for SBM Intelligence anywhere you find podcasts. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, like, and share, and let us know your thoughts in the comment section. It's always interesting reading the feedback from our listeners. For deeper insights into our work, you can visit our website at sbmintel.com. Remember to connect with us on all our social media platforms. You can find us on X, Facebook, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn at SBM Intelligence. Thank you once more for tuning into the week ahead. Join us next Friday for more updates that are shaping the African continent.